The last day of the year dawned gray, though the calendar insisted on promising new beginnings. Helena woke up before the alarm, as she had been doing for months. The room was cold, and the silence was so thick it seemed to have weight. There were no messages on her phone. No notifications, no good morning, no reminder that someone, somewhere, was still waiting for her. The poorly closed curtain let in a pale light, which drew crooked shadows on the peeling wall. The old fan creaked in the corner, struggling against the stifling summer air. In the kitchen, the faint smell of yesterday's coffee still lingered, mixed with the metallic scent of the tap that dripped incessantly. She sat on the edge of the bed for a few minutes, staring at the floor, as if preparing herself to face something much larger than just another day. She dressed without thinking, the same simple pants, the same light t-shirt, her hair tied up haphazardly. The mirror returned a tired face, deep-set eyes, a trace of permanent sadness that she no longer remembered when it had begun. Helena was 38 years old, but the weight she carried on her shoulders made it seem as though she had lived 3 lives. At the small kitchen table, she sat with a mug of lukewarm coffee between her hands. She watched the smoke rise slowly and disappear into nothingness, exactly as she felt her own life was doing, evaporating without a trace. Outside, some children laughed in the building's hallway. Someone turned on loud music in the apartment below, already in a party mood. The world prepared to celebrate, while inside her there was only a strange stillness, a loneliness that hurt more than any scream. Helena opened the drawer and took out a crumpled envelope. Inside, overdue bills. All of them. Her salary had been cut months ago, after a partial layoff at the company where she worked. The rent was pending. The fridge nearly empty. But none of that hurt as much as what didn't appear on the papers. It hurt, the feeling of having failed. It hurt, the abandonment of herself. It hurt, the distance from the people who were once home. She remembered, unintentionally, when the table was full, when the sound of laughter occupied that same space that was now silent. She remembered her mother singing softly while washing the dishes, her father arriving tired from work and asking if there was hot coffee. She remembered a time when she believed everything would work out, simply because she believed. Now, she believed in almost nothing. She went out into the street carrying a bag too light for someone who needed to carry the weight of the world. She walked to the bus stop, sat on the warm concrete bench, and watched people pass by. Couples, friends, families, strangers. Everyone going somewhere. She was going too, but without knowing exactly where. At work, no one said much. It was the last shift of the year. Some colleagues commented on parties, trips, promises. Helena just nodded, smiled politely, and went back to her desk. During lunch break, she sat alone, as always. She opened her simple lunchbox. Rice, beans, and an egg. She ate slowly, looking at the dark screen of her phone. No messages. At the end of the shift, she left early. The sky began to turn orange and lilac, announcing that night would arrive soon, and with it, a new year. On the way home, she stopped in front of a shop window. Inside, a light blue dress hung on a mannequin. She remembered a version of herself that would have entered that store, tried it on, smiling. Now she just watched, took a deep breath, and kept walking. She climbed the stairs of the building with heavy steps. She opened the apartment door and was greeted by the same silence from the morning. She left her bag on the sofa, lit a candle on the table, a habit she had created without knowing why, and sat on the floor, leaning against the wall. Outside, the first fireworks burst in the sky, announcing that the countdown would soon begin. Helena closed her eyes. And, for the first time in a long time, she let the tears fall without trying to hold them back. She cried for the wrong choices. For the abandoned dreams. For the people she lost. For the woman she was. For the woman she still didn't know how to be. The world outside celebrated, but inside that small apartment, someone faced their own end. Not the end of the year, but the end of a version of herself that could no longer bear to exist that way. And, in that silence between one firework blast and another, something invisible began to move inside her. The end of that day wasn't just the closing of a calendar. It was the exact point before a beginning that didn't yet have a name. but which, without her knowing, would change everything. Dawn arrived without asking permission. Helena was still sitting on the floor when the fireworks began to explode loudly in the sky. The thin walls of the apartment trembled slightly with each blast. Colors entered through the cracks in the window like colored ghosts, illuminating that small, silent space for seconds, and then they disappeared. She didn't count down. She didn't make a wish. She didn't toast. She didn't smile. She stayed there, hugging her knees, while the noise of the world announced hope for everyone but her. When everything finally went silent, she stood up slowly, drank a glass of water, and went to bed. Sleep came broken, fragmented, populated by memories she hadn't invited but that insisted on appearing. She saw herself younger, sitting at the kitchen table of her old house, with her mother by her side. Her mother's voice was still clear in her memory. "You will always make it, my daughter. You just need to keep going, even when it hurts." Then, the scene changed. She saw the hospital. The smell of alcohol. The white sheet. Her mother's hand cold inside hers. And the definitive silence that came after. Helena woke up with a start, her heart racing, her breath short. The room was still dark. She looked at the clock, 4:17 a.m. She sat up in bed and rubbed her face with her hands. The memories were like open wounds that never fully healed, they only learned how to ache in silence. Since her mother's death, something inside her had broken. Her father couldn't endure it for long. He dived into his own emptiness, pulled away, and became a distant man, almost a stranger. And, a few years later, he also departed, leaving Helena alone in the world. She tried to move on. She worked, studied, built a life. She married Andrei, believing that love could also be a shelter. For a while, it was. But the pain she never treated eventually leaked through the cracks of the marriage. Arguments came, fatigue, distance. Until one day, in the middle of a cold conversation without tears, Andrei packed his bags and left. "I still love you, but I don't know how to stay anymore." She never blamed him. She only learned, once again, that people also leave. Since then, Helena began to exist in survival mode. Work, pay bills, sleep, wake up. Everything automatic. Everything empty. The phone rang that morning. It was her Aunt Rosa, her mother's sister, one of the few people who still cared. "Happy New Year, my daughter. Are you okay?" Helena looked around the silent apartment, at the empty table, at the closed window. "I'm getting by." There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Sometimes, getting by isn't living, Helena." The sentence hung in the air, heavy. "Come see me any day," the aunt added. "You don't have to face everything alone." After she hung up, Helena stood still in the middle of the living room for a long time. Alone. That word had echoed inside her for as long as she could remember. Alone to decide, to make mistakes, to fall, to get up. Alone when she needed to be strong. Alone when she just wanted someone to say that everything would be okay. The invisible wound wasn't just the loss. It was the sum of everything she never allowed herself to feel. She put on some light clothes and went out for an aimless walk. The city was still waking up slowly after the night of partying. Empty bottles, streamers on the ground, sleepy people sweeping the sidewalks. Helena observed everything as if behind glass, present but distant. She sat on a park bench. An old man walked with a dog. A woman watered plants. 2 children played at running among the pigeons. Life happening. And she felt as if she had stopped in time. She pulled a folded paper from her pocket, an old resume, and stared at it. She remembered how many dreams she had when she was younger. How many ideas. How many versions of the future. Where did she lose herself? The wind blew lightly, bringing the smell of wet grass and coffee from a nearby bakery. Helena took a deep breath. For the first time in months, she noticed something simple. She was still there. She was still breathing. She was still feeling. The pain continued, but there was a small flame of awareness lit. the perception that she no longer wanted to just survive. Upon returning home, she found a note stuck to the door, a notice of overdue rent. She sat on the sofa and cried again, in silence, without drama, just tired of fighting alone. But at the bottom of that crying, something different began to emerge. It wasn't hope yet. It was a question. Is this all my life is going to be? This question didn't come to accuse. It came to wake her up. And, without knowing it, Helena had just touched the exact point where every true beginning starts. When pain stops being just pain and transforms into a decision. The following days passed slowly, as if time had decided to walk more slowly just to test her patience. Helena returned to the routine: work, bus, home, silence. But the question that had arisen within her, is this all my life is going to be? Wouldn't leave her in peace. It came up in the middle of the shift, in the shower, on the way home. A constant discomfort, impossible to ignore. That Wednesday, after leaving work, she decided not to go straight home. She walked to an old street downtown where she used to go when she needed to think. The sky was cloudy, and the wind announced rain. She entered a small used bookstore, the kind that smells of old paper and memories. Inside, the world seemed slower. She ran her fingers over the books when she found a forgotten notebook on a table. It had no cover, just yellowed pages held together by an elastic band. On the first page, someone had handwritten, "For whoever finds this, read only if you are lost." Helena felt a shiver. She sat on a bench and opened the notebook. Inside were thoughts, phrases, reflections from someone who seemed to have gone through pains similar to hers. Losses, failures, new beginnings, the fear of continuing. Every word seemed to have been written for her. One sentence made her stop. Sometimes God doesn't change our situation because He is trying to change who we are within it. Helena closed the notebook, her heart racing. "Did you like it?" asked the bookstore owner, a white-haired man with a calm gaze. "Can I take it?" she asked, almost voiceless. He smiled. "That notebook appears to those who need it. I've never charged for it." Helena left the bookstore with a strange feeling in her heart, as if something invisible had been touched. But the true impact came that same night. Upon arriving home, she found a message from her Aunt Rosa. "Helena, the doctor wants to talk to you. It's about your father. Call me when you can." Her stomach tightened. She called immediately. Her aunt's voice was trembling. "Your father is hospitalized. His heart is weak. He asked to see you." The world seemed to tilt. Helena sat on the edge of the bed, holding the phone, unable to speak for a few seconds. It had been years since she saw her father. The last words between them had been harsh, unfinished, full of bitterness. I'll go tomorrow," she replied. That night, she hardly slept. The hospital smelled of disinfectant and silence. She found her father thin, fragile, his eyes too tired for a man who had once been so strong. He held her hand. "I made many mistakes with you," he said, his voice weak. "But I never stopped loving you." Helena felt something break inside her chest. She didn't cry. She just squeezed his hand back. When she left the room, she knew that something had changed forever. The past had knocked on her door. And now she could no longer run away. The hospital was still silent when Helena returned the next day. Fine rain hit the windows, drawing crooked paths on the glass, as if the world outside was also trying to find a direction. She entered the room slowly. Her father was awake, staring at the ceiling. Seeing her, a weak smile appeared on his face. "You came back. I said I would." She sat beside the bed. The silence between them wasn't comfortable, but it wasn't empty either. It was the kind of silence loaded with everything that was never said. "I wasn't a good father," he murmured. Helena took a deep breath. "You were the father you knew how to be." He closed his eyes for a few seconds. "I lost myself when your mother left, and I ended up losing you along with her." The words hit Helena like a wave. For years she had carried this pain like an invisible weight, believing she had been abandoned by choice. Hearing that didn't erase everything, but it changed the way she viewed the past. "I lost myself too," she replied, her voice almost a whisper. Her father turned his face toward her. "There is still time, daughter." Those 4 words hung in the air. There is still time. On the way home, Helena walked without feeling the rain. Memories flooded back. The fights, the absences, the letters she never answered, the calls she ignored. Pride, fear, pain, all mixed together. That night, she sat in the living room, opened the notebook she had found at the bookstore, and began to write for the first time in years. She wrote about her mother, about her father, about Andre, about herself, about how she was tired of surviving. But changing was scary. It was easier to remain where she was, even if it hurt, than to risk something new and perhaps fail again. The conflict wasn't external. It was inside her. Keep going the same way, or cross through the fear. Helena spent the week divided between these 2 voices, one saying, "Stay," the other whispering, "Go." On Saturday, she went back to the hospital. Her father was weaker. But seeing her, he held her hand with surprising strength. "Promise me one thing. Don't let your life pass by like mine did." She swallowed hard. "I promise to try." He smiled. "Trying is already beginning." When she left, Helena stopped in the hallway, leaned against the wall, and let the tears fall. For the first time, they weren't just from sadness. They were from fear, from longing, and from something new, a will to change. That night, she sat at the table, took a blank sheet of paper, and wrote at the top, "If I don't change now, when?" And below, without thinking too much, she began to list small things. Find another job. Pay part of the debt. Visit Aunt Rosa. Take care of myself. Nothing grand. But it was a beginning. Helena folded the paper and placed it inside the notebook found at the bookstore. The conflict was still there. The fear was still there. But now, there was also a choice. On Monday morning, the phone rang too early. Helena was still in bed when she saw the hospital's name on the screen. Even before answering, something inside her already knew. "Miss Helena, we are very sorry." The world went mute. She didn't cry at that moment. She just sat on the bed, holding the phone, hearing words she didn't fully absorb. When she hung up, she stared at the wall for a time she couldn't measure. Her father was gone. The farewell they had begun days earlier was now complete, but at the same time, too incomplete. At the wake, Helena stood beside the coffin almost without moving. Few people came. Some old acquaintances, faces marked by time, life, and fatigue. Her Aunt Rosa held her hand tightly, as if afraid Helena would disappear along with her father. When it was all over, she walked back home. She didn't take the bus. She didn't speak to anyone. Upon entering the apartment, she sat on the living room floor and stayed there, motionless. Loss didn't come in waves. It came in silence. The next day, she was called into the company. A permanent cut. A layoff. 2 losses in 2 days. Helena left the building carrying a small box with her few work belongings. She walked aimlessly until she sat on a park bench, holding the box in her lap. The sky was clear, too blue for someone who felt so broken. The bills. The rent. The job. Her father. All lost. The fall wasn't just material. It was emotional, spiritual, human. That night, she didn't light the candle. She didn't write. She didn't cry. She just lay there, staring at the ceiling, feeling the weight of everything that seemed too late. The thought came like a sentence. Maybe I lost my chance. The world kept spinning. But for her, everything seemed to have stopped. And, in that silent bottom of her own pain, Helena touched the lowest point of her journey. The place where nothing else made sense. The place where, without knowing it, the true beginning would start. The apartment dawned in absolute silence. Helena opened her eyes slowly. For a few seconds, she forgot everything. Then reality returned in full. The call, the wake, the company box still in the corner of the room, the bills spread across the table. She sat up in bed, her feet touching the cold floor. There were no more tears. The pain had moved past the stage of crying and transformed into something heavy, constant, almost motionless. A pain that didn't scream, it just existed. She went to the kitchen, opened the window, and let the morning air in. The smell of warm bread from the corner bakery mixed with the distant sound of buses and hurried footsteps. The world moved on. Helena rested her hands on the windowsill and closed her eyes. For the first time since her father's death, she spoke aloud, "I don't know what to do anymore." The sentence wasn't a complaint. It was a surrender. Later, she went out for a walk. She walked without direction, without a goal, without haste. She walked until she felt her body tire, as if movement was the only thing still keeping her connected to life. She stopped in front of a small, open church. She didn't go in. She just sat on the doorstep. She watched people entering and leaving, some with tired expressions, others in silence, others smiling discreetly. An old lady sat beside her. "Heavy day?" she asked. Helena nodded. "Every day is." The woman smiled sweetly. "Then keep coming back tomorrow. Sometimes we just need to sit and breathe." Helena didn't answer, but those words stayed. Upon returning home, she found the bookstore notebook on the table. She opened it at random. She read, "One does not rebuild an entire life in one day, but one starts by changing the way they cross the next." She held the notebook against her chest. That afternoon, she got up and did something simple. She made the bed. Then she washed the dishes. Then she swept the house. Small gestures. Small movements. Small light. She sat on the sofa and, for the first time since the fall, took a deep breath without feeling her chest tighten so much. It wasn't hope yet, but it was awareness. Before sleeping, she wrote in the notebook, "Today, I didn't improve my life, but I took care of myself. And that already changes everything." And that night, Helena slept without dreams, just in peace. The next morning, Helena woke up before the alarm, but unlike other days, she didn't feel the crushing weight in her chest. There was still pain, there was still uncertainty, but something new had settled inside her, a silent readiness. She got up, opened the window, let the sun in. The world looked the same. But she didn't. She sat at the table and took the paper she had written days before. She read the list, took a deep breath, picked up the phone and called Aunt Rosa. "Can I visit you today?" "Of course, my daughter. I was waiting for that." At her aunt's house, between coffee and simple cake, Helena told her everything. The exhaustion, the loneliness, the fear of not making it, the feeling of being left behind. Her aunt listened in silence. Then she held Helena's hands. "You're not late. You're alive." Helena cried right there, without shame. That same day, she updated her resume. She sent messages to old contacts. She asked for help, something she never did. At night, she wrote in the notebook, "Today, I chose not to give up." It wasn't easy. There were days of doubt. Days when she thought about turning back. But she continued. She went to the cemetery to say goodbye to her father, even after everything. She said what she had never said. She forgave. She forgave herself. And slowly, something inside her was reorganizing. She wasn't resolved. She was under construction. The following weeks weren't easy, but they were different. Helena started waking up early, even without a steady job. She made the bed, made coffee, wrote in the notebook. She sent resumes, went to interviews, came back tired but with the feeling of being in motion. She started attending the small church on the corner again, not out of obligation, but because she found silence and welcome there. She made friends with the lady on the step, Dona Marta, who always greeted her with a smile. She rebuilt her bond with Aunt Rosa. She started visiting her every week. She learned recipes, heard stories, laughed at simple things. She paid the first part of the rent debt. Small, but symbolic. She tidied the house. She bought a plant. She placed the blue dress in the window, even without having bought it, as a promise. A month later, she received a call, a temporary opening in a small company. It wasn't the dream job, but it was an open door. On the first day, she came home exhausted and happy. She lit the candle on the table and, for the first time in a long time, she smiled to herself. Gradually, the past no longer hurt so much. The memories remained, but now they coexisted with new experiences. Helena still made mistakes. She still had difficult days. But now she knew she could fall and get back up. And that changed everything. The year advanced slowly, as if respecting Helena's time. There was no sudden miracle, no unexpected wealth, no spectacular change. But there was something much deeper. There was peace. That afternoon, Helena walked through the same park where, months ago, she had sat with a box of belongings in her lap and the feeling that all was lost. Now, the sun touched her face in a light way, the wind swayed the leaves of the trees, and children ran after pigeons as if life were just that, movement and laughter. She sat on the same bench. She breathed, and she perceived, with a clarity almost sacred, that she was no longer the same person. The apartment now smelled of fresh coffee, had a plant in the window, and the notebook always open on the table. There were bills, still. There were challenges. But there was no longer that feeling of being empty inside. That day, she received the confirmation. The temporary position had become permanent. She didn't celebrate with euphoria. She celebrated in silence, with tears in her eyes and a smile in her heart. At night, she lit the candle, sat at the table, and wrote in the notebook, "I survived the worst year of my life. And yet, I am here, more whole than ever." She visited her father's grave the following Sunday. She took simple flowers. She sat on the grass and spoke in a low voice. "I did it, Dad. Not the way I dreamed, but the way I needed to." The wind blew lightly. Helena stood up feeling something she hadn't felt in a long time. Gratitude. Gratitude for the falls, for the losses, for the difficult nights. Because, without them, she would never have found the woman who now walked back home with firm steps and a peaceful heart. The year didn't change her life. She changed her life. The year only marked the moment she decided. And that was everything. Perhaps, while you listened to this story, you recognized yourself in some silence, in some pain, in some waiting. Perhaps you are also reaching the end of a tired, bruised year, with the feeling that everything went wrong. But the truth is simple and powerful. As long as you are breathing, there is still a new beginning. If this story touched your heart, perhaps it can touch the heart of someone you love. Share it with those who need hope. Write in the comments what you felt, or where in the journey you find yourself now. And if you want to walk with us through more stories that heal, comfort, and inspire, subscribe to the channel. You are not late. You are not too broken. And it is never too late to write a new chapter.